Unscripted.
I wanted to take a minute to talk about this because this is a situation where it is starting to get a little bit one-sided in terms of what the Xbox Series X is able to accomplish, and even in certain ways the Xbox Series S compared to what the PlayStation 5 is doing. And I just kind of wanted to hit on that just because it is a little bit frustrating to see. It's a little bit more lopsided than what I would have figured. Obviously, it's not so much with the newer games, but with some of the older ones. But I still thought it was definitely worth talking about just to kind of get my thoughts and opinions out there and find out what you guys think. I know a lot of you probably won't think it's a big deal, but for someone like me, I think that it is starting to turn into a little bit of a big deal. So maybe some of you guys remember I did a video talking about some of the good things that I saw from Xbox. Like, one of the things that they did was release patches for some of their older games that increased the frame rate to 120 frames per second. Now, I really like this feature. You might go, oh, well, it's just old games. I understand that it's just old games, but, you know, some of these games are games that are continuing, like service games or whatever. Like, even the latest Battlefield games are running at 120 frames per second on the Xbox Series X, and I think that that's a phenomenal thing because people still play that game, right? I mean, Call of Duty, I'm playing that. That's a new game, but I mean, obviously, even on PlayStation 5, I'm able to play that at 120 frames per second. I like that. I went out and spent, thousands of dollars on a new TV with HDMI 2.1, OLED, all the whole nine, to be able to play 4K 120 hertz with these new consoles. And to date, I love it. You know what I mean? It's hard to really go back in terms of, so it is nice to see that a lot of stuff. I'll give you guys a good example. So I like to buy games when they're on sale digitally or what have you. So I love the Assassin's Creed series. Okay, I bought, I played through. Well, I like the original Assassin's Creed. 1, 2, 3, the Ezio collection. I'm not real big into the newer ones for some reason. There's just an overabundance of what to do. But I digress. So I bought Assassin's Creed 3 remastered, Assassin's Creed Rogue, which I've never even played through, even though I've been wanting to. But the reason why I never played through it was because the new consoles were out when that came out. That was an exclusive. That was a 360. That was a previous gen Assassin's Creed when the current gen Xbox and PlayStation 4 got Assassin's Creed Unity. So I never played Rogue, but I have Rogue remastered. Anyway, so all those games are updated to 60 frames now, which I think is absolutely incredible, because if I ever choose to want to go back and play those games again, I have the option to play them at a much higher fidelity and things like that. So even with HDR and things. So I think that's incredible. What's interesting is this is a flaw in Sony's design for the PlayStation 5. So if you look at stuff like Warzone, I can play that 120 frames on Xbox. I can only play it at 60 on PlayStation 5. Reason being is, and developers and Sony have come out and admitted this, is that you need, they need to actually have the game completely developed for the PlayStation 5 for it to be able to work that way. Whereas you don't have to do that with the Xbox, right? You don't have to touch the code. You don't have to go in there and do that. A simple update can do it. So stuff like Rocket League, that's why that's 120 frames on Xbox. Even stuff like Star Wars Squadrons, right? 120 frames on Xbox. And the latest, which is a huge blow in my opinion, and I wasn't decided where I was going to get this game, right? But this pretty much decides it. Mass Effect Legendary Edition. Yes, let me explain how I feel about this stuff. There's certain games like KOTOR, when they released that, and it's rumored that that's being worked on right now, a complete remake of that, which has me over the moon excited. I will buy that game and play that above pretty much all else. When it comes to Mass Effect, one of my favorite series, if not my favorite series of all time. Of course I'm going to play it at a higher fidelity where they fix part 1 with the issues and things like that. All the DLC, which I've never played before. Of course I'm going to play it. Of course this is a day one for me. Mass Effect Legendary Edition performance details. They offer a number of options to prioritize visual fidelity and or frame rate depending on platform. Players on PC can play up to 240 frames per second and supporting a refresh rate up to 240 Hz. Additionally, players can tweak several graphics options at any time. Console players can toggle between two gameplay modes at any time on all platforms. Favor quality, which prioritizes achieving the highest visual fidelity possible in exchange for lower target frame rate, or favor frame rate, which prioritizes the highest frame rate possible by scaling native resolution and reducing some graphical features. Now, here's the very interesting part. Okay, so you have to keep in mind, we aren't getting Xbox Series X version and a PS5 version. We're only getting PS4 Pro version, Xbox One X version, right? So these are backwards compatible basically, but still enhanced on the new platforms, but not enhanced the same, right? So we're basically only, so basically this is how this goes, okay? On the PlayStation 4 Pro, you will get 4K at 30 frames per second. If you go to favor frame rate, you will get 60 frames per second at 1440p. Which, if you go on the PlayStation 5, you get 60 frames per second at 1440p. You're only getting the PlayStation 4 Pro version, right? So now, if we look over here at the Xbox One version, or the Xbox One X version, you're getting 4K at 30 frames, or 60 frames at 1440p. So basically the same as the PS4 Pro. Now, when you look at the Xbox Series X, you get 4K at 60 frames, right? Which is what you would get on PlayStation 5 as well. You know, the 4K 60, favor quality mode. But if you do favor frame rate, you can get up to 120 frames per second, 1440p. Now, for me, it would just make much more sense to play it at 1440p, 120 frames, because that's going to be a very smooth situation. Now, this is a very bad situation for Sony because they have this kind of flaw in their design, and I'm not sure that it's going to, you know, how this is going to work out, or how this is going to sort of, you know, work for anybody in particular. But I do feel like, you know, what we've seen so far is that, you know, Microsoft has this huge advantage in 120 frames per second games, and that to me is kind of blowing my mind that's happening, that Sony's kind of allowed that to happen. Now, I'm not sure exactly what the thought process was. Like, Microsoft clearly had a better idea of what they wanted to do and how they wanted to allow older games to basically go into this and get updated and stuff like that. So bravo to them, kudos to them for being able to pull this off. But this is an instance, folks, where a game I wasn't sure where I was going to get it. I'm going to get it on an Xbox Series X because, you know, obviously the frame rate is going to be a huge thing. Now, before people get mad at me, how can anybody get mad at me for, you know, this? And I'm not saying that, you know, this is the way it's going to be all the time. Like, Sony can maybe fix something or get something going, but the SDKs or whatever need to get updated badly on the PlayStation side. They need to get this thing fixed out. They need to get it worked out to where they could take full advantage of the PlayStation 5 hardware, because there is 100% no reason why PlayStation 5 couldn't do 120 frames at 1440p with these games, right? There's just no reason behind it. You will not see a new game come out that's offering 120 frames on only Xbox Series X and not PS5, because again, backwards compatibility is locked at what the PS4 Pro can do. So we're kind of in this weird kind of situation where, you know, there's this obvious flaw in what's going on with the platform. So I do hope that we sort of see some kind of change, something happen sooner rather than later, and I would love to see that happen, just because this is kind of a bummer to me, and especially since I really kind of wanted to get the game. I buy most of my stuff on PlayStation now, so I was really kind of looking forward to that. But yeah, it's very, very weird, very bad technical flaw on Sony's part, and I know a lot of people might go, "Oh, well, what's it really even matter?" But for me personally, I think, you know, double the frame rate. Yeah, you know what I mean? It is kind of sad that these are played kind of via backwards compatibility, which seems like PS4 games obviously will not be able to go above the 60 FPS point. The SDK limitations preventing it, they can probably do something, but, you know, again, This is something that obviously is going to continue to happen if it's older games. I wouldn't expect it with newer games. We see even like with Resident Evil Village, there's hardly any difference whatsoever between the Xbox version or the you know, and the PlayStation 5 version, because they're pretty close in power and things like that. So this obviously is a bit of a bummer when we see this kind of thing happen, but it happens, and I'm not going to let it get to me or kind of bug me or anything like that, because I feel like that would be just one of those things. But it is something that we should definitely keep our eye on. And hopefully, Sony can get some kind of thing going with the SDK. Hopefully, they can get something going with their ability to get out there and update this. And, I'm looking forward to seeing how that happens. Hopefully, we can see that happen sooner rather than later, because I know some of you guys probably feel like me. I know most people don't have a 120 hertz TV with HDMI 2.0 or 2.1. But for me, somebody who spent a lot of money on getting that, so I was prepared for next gen, it's a bit of a bummer and a bit of a tell, because I'm going to get it on Xbox. Let me know what you guys think. Thanks for watching. Rack 'em up. Crapgamer out.
Unscripted.